Good evening, class. For today's discussion board post, I decided to answer question number 3. The question asks, discuss the terrorism suppression problem in terms of form, focuses, and objectives, and then what conclusions do you draw about the nature and problem of dealing with terrorists? So first, the forms of terrorist suppression are anti-terrorism and counterterrorism. Anti-terrorism deals with reducing the effects of attacks by terrorists. Therefore, policies and procedures are implemented to reduce those effects. Some examples are increased airport security to prevent terrorists from boarding airplanes and barriers around buildings. 4 difficulties can be problematic for anti-terrorism policies. Like anti-terrorism is reactive because one responds to terrorist initiatives. Large amount of potential targets that need protection. Terrorists can look for targets that are not defended as well as other targets. And suppressing terrorism is expensive. Despite the difficulties and dilemmas, anti-terrorism policies are still important for suppressing terrorism. Next, counterterrorism is another form of suppressing terrorism and is described as military measures against terrorists and deals with both preventing and reacting to terrorist attacks, whereas anti-terrorism deals with simply reacting to terrorist attacks. Counterterrorism deals with both preventing and reacting. So counterterrorism is also difficult because of a large amount of intelligence that is needed to be gathered to acquire all the necessary information to prevent the attack, and intelligence is sometimes typically difficult to gather. So next, focuses of terrorist suppression are international and national efforts. As far as international and national forms of suppression, after the attacks on 9/11, the United States received a large amount of sentiment and aid from other countries. The international and national efforts were aimed at dismantling Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and eventually leading into Pakistan. However, this sentiment quickly disappeared and internationalization faded when the United States moved its direction towards Iraq, which was opposed by major allies. Therefore, we saw this shift from international and national entities working together to more the United States or a strictly national role seen as the wars continued. And then last part of the question, the objectives of these efforts. And the objectives are capturing the entirety of the problem and suppressing terrorism. However, capturing and killing the terrorists do not destroy terrorism. Even though we may capture the individuals, terrorism still lingers because there eventually be others who do take up terrorist tactics. So as long as individuals choose terrorism, there will always be terrorism. The United States can try to contain terrorism by containing those who support and aid the terrorists, as well as containing their ways that they carry out the attacks. For instance, higher security at the airports. So the main objective is simply suppressing terrorism to the best of the United States' abilities. And then the conclusions that I draw about the nature and problem of dealing with terrorists is the unknown that comes with fighting terrorists. For instance, we do not always know who our enemy is. They are not dressed in uniform, and we are not fighting another country. We do not know what else to expect from terrorists. We do not always know what tactics they are capable of, since most of their methods are unconventional, like suicide bombs. Therefore, we do not know what their weapon of choice will be next. Terrorists are always changing their tactics and always changing the weapons that they use. Other problems that come with dealing with terrorists is since we are not fighting another military, it is much harder to know when the war will be over. Just like Snow stated, terrorism will always be around because terrorism is a method that others use. So therefore, Do we draw a line that the war is over when terrorists? And so therefore, where do we draw a line when the war is over, since terrorism, like Snow argued, will simply always be around because of the method that it is. So thank you for visiting my post this week, and I look forward to your responses.